Good evening, church. It is so good to be with you tonight. I'm so excited to deal with this topic at hand that I think will be relevant to all of us. And welcome to the journey. Please buckle up your seat belts and let's get into the word. I don't know if you attended church last week, the week before, 2 weeks ago. Last week I had to preach an interim lesson because I just couldn't get to this material that I want to share with you today. It's been an intense few weeks, but I'm busy with a series of lessons. This is lesson number 2. It's about the greatest people on the planet. That's the name of the series. And I just want to recap that quickly for those of you who were not or did not listen to the lesson 2 weeks ago. We spoke about Matthew chapter 18, verse 1 to 6, a powerful piece of scripture there where Jesus is met up with his disciples and he heard them sort of arguing about who's the greatest. And Jesus then gets them together and he gets a little child to stand in between them. And then he teaches them and he says, unless you become like this child, unless you change and become like this child, you will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. And when we read that text, it becomes very clear that the greatest people on the planet are little children. Jesus says, unless you become like a child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So in God's eyes, a child is the ultimate example of how we should be, how we should think, how we should be operating. And so just a few things. If you want to know what greatness is, go look at a child. Don't look at the president. Don't look at other adults. Look at a child. You'll see what God sees as greatness. Secondly, unless you reverse, you will never enter heaven, is what Jesus teaches us in that passage. Because the Greek word he uses there for change really could be translated reverse. And that is so cool because what happens is that we're all children at some point, and then we grow up and become these adults with some evil motives and some additional ideas, and we lose our innocence and we lose our childlikeness. And Jesus says reverse and go back. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to enter the kingdom of heaven. Also, what we pick up in that text is that our treatment of children correlates directly with our treatment of God. You cannot say that you love God and abuse a kid. It's impossible. You can't say that you honor God, but you don't honor a little kid. There's something wrong then in your spiritual life. Verse 10 is peculiar, and we spoke quite a bit about that. And if you want to know more about that, please go check out that lesson. Because verse 10 of chapter 18, the book of Matthew, says, see that you do not look down on one of these little ones, talking about the children. For I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. And there's a debate about whether every child then has an angel, etc., etc. But if you want to know more about that, please go check that out. But what we do pick up in that text is basically two things. First of all, be careful how you treat children. Their access to heaven is always open. Okay, be very careful how you treat the child. Don't think you're going to get away with how you treat a child. The God of heaven will sort you out. Secondly, be careful to become like children. Their ways are the way to God. And that's the topic of this series. Now, we read this text in Matthew chapter 18, and that's powerful. If we go to chapter 19, we see Jesus with children again. This time, people are bringing children to Jesus so that he could pray for them and bless them. And Jesus doesn't push them away, but his disciples, they do. They sort of say to Jesus, no, keep the children away. The book of Mark, chapter 10, explains the same story from verse 13 to 16. And he adds a little bit of depth to the story. And it's interesting that when they bring children to Jesus and the disciples then push away these people with their children, Jesus rebukes them. And he says, no. Don't ever hinder a child from coming to me. And he uses a Greek word there, aganakteo, which basically means that Jesus was greatly afflicted. He was indignant. He was displeased. He was angry at the fact that people would keep children away from him. And that's a warning for parents. Never, ever keep your child away from God. And never keep them away from Jesus. The second thing that we pick up in that text, especially according to Mark, which is so beautiful, is that after Jesus rebuked them and he blessed these children, he picked them up. He embraced them and he put them in his arms and he just hugged them. You can see the heart of God in that. That's the Jesus whom we serve. You cannot say that you don't have time for children and love Jesus at the same time. There's nothing wrong. There's something wrong. So in Matthew 18, Jesus and children we see. In Matthew 19, Jesus and children we see. In Matthew 21, Jesus and children we see again. And this text in Matthew chapter 21 is something that we sometimes really just miss. I must be honest, when I just read that text, I was shocked that I missed it, because usually Matthew 21, the first thing we talk about is Jesus coming into the temple with a whip and throwing over the tables and accusing the people of, making God's house, the prayer house of God, a den of robbers. Okay, and what's so powerful is that the Pharisees and the chief priests, they come into the temple and they are furious. And they're not furious because he overthrew the tables. It's very interesting, okay? The reason why they are furious is because children were running around in the temple area shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David." That was the issue that they had. They weren't angry with Jesus because of his whip. They were angry that he didn't stop the children from shouting that he was the Son of David. And so they come to him and they say to him, "Do you hear what these kids are saying?" And Jesus, as clever as he was, just quoted scripture to them. He quoted Psalm 8 verse 2. "Have you not read? From the lips of children and infants you have ordained praise." You see, the children recognized who Jesus was before the adult world. That's the type of heart that a child has. A child has got a heart to see God. That's beautiful. And just by the way, the first person on planet Earth to recognize Jesus was the Messiah was a 6-month-old unborn baby. Remember, when Mary came to Elizabeth, she just found out she was pregnant, and Elizabeth was already pregnant with John the Baptist for 6 months. The baby inside her womb jumped up and down, the text says, and moved about, because spiritually, John the Baptist, before he was born, recognized Jesus was the Son of God. And so children, ladies and gentlemen, children is what's great on the planet Earth. And 1 Corinthians 14 verse 20 says that in our thinking we need to be like children. Hence why we have this sermon series. And tonight what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the fact that kids don't worry like adults do. You see, we want to go back to children. We want to look at them and ask the question, okay, so Lord, you say we've got to become like children, but how are children and how are they different from us? And it seems like children don't worry about the things that adults worry about. Now, most of you have probably forgotten because some of your kids are older, but let me tell you this, kids don't worry about the things that we worry about. Now, we've got small kids and we see this every day in our house. And I want to say for this lesson that when I say kids, I'm specifically talking about kids probably up to the age of 6, in that bracket, first 6 years of life. And so what I've done is I've just asked around some of the folks here in the church to send me videos. I wanted to ask them to ask their kids to tell us what they worry about, and they recorded it for us. And so I've got this for you. I'm going to play some of the videos for you as a nice introduction to this lesson. Some of the older kids, you'll hear that some of the older kids, they do have worries. The more mature kids that have maybe had a little bit of a harder life, you can pick up that they've got worries. But the younger kids, you will immediately pick up. They don't have any clue about what real worries are about. So here we go and enjoy.
My name is Jared and I'm 13 years old. What do I worry about? I worry about when my dad passes away, I'll be alone.
I am worried about my sister and us moving for. I'm worried about my mom and dad and my little brother at school. I worry about our family.
So what I worry about is when I'm about to play a cricket match and I'm scared I go out for a duck or get bowled first ball. That's my worries.
And just a side note, old Ulrich talks about being out for a duck playing cricket. Now, I know you guys in the States don't play cricket. You've got baseball, but you can go check it out on Google. But basically, going out for a duck is like, I don't know, it's when you go bat and you just, I don't know how to compare it to baseball, but it's just like it's the worst way to lose and to go out.
Hi, 8 years old, and my fear is to get in trouble by my parents.
Jasmine, are you worried about anything?
No. I worry oor skelms, want hulle steel mense goed. Maar ek is kamer eendag, so ek nie goeders gedoen het.
Ja, jy's reg my liefie.
En
Kyk vir die video.
Ek worry oor my boetie wat by skool is, want nou is hy juffrou Roos.
Is dit? Oh, is dit wat jou worry?
Hello, church. I'm worried about zombies. Hello, church. I'm worried about spiders. I don't worry about anything. I like flowers, but I don't worry about them. And I like sunsets. I don't worry about them because they're beautiful. And I like playing dolls. It's fun. I don't really like lipstick and putting on lipstick because I always mess it up.
Abby en Gibbs. Abby, sê vir gaga vir mamma. Worry jy oor enigiets vandag?
Yep.
Waaroor worry jy, Gibby Gibbs?
By calls.
Worry jy oor kos vandag? Hæ?
Ja.
Is jy al weer honger?
Ja.
Hm?
Ja.
Gaan mamma vir jou kos gee?
Ja.
O, okay.
Ek weet nie.
Sê vir mamma, waaroor worry jy, Abby?
Oor movies.
Oor movies, okay.
En laat ek kan jy die video
Now, the last video of Abby, this last video, the girl there, what she said just before and as the video cut off, she said, I'm worried about how long this video is going to continue because I want to go play. I thought it's so cool. Isn't that just too cute? And I'm sure you could pick up the younger kids. They don't worry about anything, okay? And we as parents, we try to keep away worries from them for as long as possible because worries are so evident in adult life, right? Young kids clearly don't worry about food for tomorrow, about whether they will have clothes to wear. Yes, they will say like, I'm hungry or things, but they don't worry if there's going to be food on the table tomorrow. They don't worry whether school fees are going to be paid or about whether they'll be safe traveling in the car or about the state of our country and the politics or about whether they will get a job one day or about their health. They don't worry about the influence of social media or if someone might be rude to them tomorrow or about their funeral one day or someone that might not like them. They don't really worry about death or dying. They definitely don't worry about money. Every day we try to take our kids, we try to take them a surprise, like a little sweet or a chocolate. And sometimes when we pick them up from school and they want to cry, they want to go crazy if we don't bring them a surprise because they're so used to it. And they ask, why didn't you bring a surprise? And we say, well, because we didn't have money today. And they can't understand that. Because in their world, money just exists. It's just there. It just appears from somewhere. They don't worry about it. They just believe that it will be there. Children, ladies and gentlemen, they don't even think about the things that we worry about. I'm so reminded of Jesus' words. I'm going to read it to us. Matthew 6:25. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food? And the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day have enough trouble of its own. This text clearly depicts the mind of a child perfectly, doesn't it? Jesus is teaching us in that text how we shouldn't worry because that's how children think. We have to learn to look at our lives the way that a child looks at his life. Now, let me just make this clear. Children don't worry like we do, but that doesn't mean that they don't get scared or sad or heartbroken sometimes. I'm specifically, though, speaking about the type of worries that Jesus speaks about here in this lesson. But I think that we need to get to the bottom of this, and the question needs to be asked. Why do adults worry and children don't? Where did we pick this up? Okay? And at the core of the answers to this question lies the lesson that I think we need to hear today. I propose two important aspects in answering this question. First of all, children don't live in the next, but in the now. Children don't live in the next, but in the now. Let me explain this. Where does worry come from in adults? When did it develop and why did it develop? I would like to submit to you that it developed through pain and suffering in the past. Okay? Adults worry because they've got life experience. They've seen the devastation of disease. They've experienced poverty. They've seen what a lack of money can do. They've seen car accidents. They've had friends who have died in car accidents. Their life experience leads them to worry about food and about the future and about finances and about the basic necessities of life. Adults worry about what could happen. You see, they're living in the next. They base their possible future on a very real past. And in this sense, worry is actually very reasonable. Yet Jesus says, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Matthew 5:34, read it just now. And we don't get that right. We are too much in the next, so we pass through the now. Yet children get this right. My kids literally live only in the present. Literally, it's about now. They might worry that they won't get ice cream after supper. But let me tell you this, they never worry about anything tomorrow. They live in the now. Of course, my kids think about the future. Yes, they do. But here is another very important lesson for us to learn. Please listen to this carefully. My kids only think about the future. They only ever nag me about the future if it is something good. Like when their grandma's coming to visit the weekend. They will count down the nights. How many sleeps is it? 5 sleeps when it's their birthday party coming. How many sleeps? How many weeks until it's my birthday? Okay? Or about, going to the beach over the weekend. They will only nag and think and brag about the future if it is something good. They only think about the future when it is something positive and when it is a good thing. Okay? They might go to sleep and dream about their birthday party next week, but they will never go to sleep and worry about their food for the next day. Children don't think about what could go wrong tomorrow. They think about now and the good of the future. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you think that we can learn from that? Live in the now. Only think about the future if there's good things. We only think about the good things in the future, not the bad things. So that's the first point I would like us to remember. The children don't live in the past. They live in the now. They live in the present. Secondly, children don't worry because somebody else is worrying for them. Okay? Who worries for them? Parents. To all parents out there, you would know this. You want to learn what worry is? Get a kid. To all the if you're single or you're married and you want to get a kid, I mean, just know that when you do get a kid, and you're really so excited about a kid. When you get a kid, that's when worry really starts in this life. People are so excited to get a kid until they get one, then they're overwhelmed with the love, and then they realize, oh my goodness, I am stuck for life with worry over this kid, with concern. My heart is literally, like Afrida says, grown arms and legs, and it's running around outside my body, and I need to protect it and keep it safe. A child doesn't worry about clothes and food and finance and future. And let me just say that if parenting is done well, children don't worry about those things, at least for the first 6 years of life. Okay, that child's parents are taking the responsibility for those things. And if a parent's a good parent, they will make sure that they can do everything that's necessary to provide for their children. Children never worry because they are never without parents. And I'm just reminded of this text where David said, he said, I was young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous go hungry or their children begging for bread. Let that sink in. I've never seen the righteous go hungry or their children begging for bread. Okay, if you raise your kids in a godly home, they won't have any worries. Not all children, unfortunately, have good parents. Now, I said earlier that worry is a result of painful experiences. And kids do go through painful experiences, whether they've got good parents or not. They fall, they get sick. Micah had Kawasaki disease. They get their vaccinations, they cry, they get hidings. But they go through it, and it seems that they forget it. They forget the suffering and the pain. When Micah was really sick 3-4 years ago, I don't think he ever sits out here on the lawn and thinks back to that and worries that he's ever going to get that disease again. He's forgotten about it. Why? Because parents are there when their kids go through pain. They are there. The presence of parents makes the pain bearable. And the love of parents during and after the pain helps kids to forget the pain quickly and move on. I've become an expert with the kids. You see them crying. I've just become an expert of getting them from crying to laughter. I want to get them out of the crying as quickly as possible. My presence makes it possible for them to let go of the pain, the negative thoughts, and to turn from crying to laughing. So children, they feel safe and secure because their parents are protecting and providing for them, and because those parents are present. Children think that life is easy and the world is safe because that is what parents do for them. They make life easy and keep them safe. And so now we need to bring this home. Let's bring this home. Why do we live so much in the next instead of the now as adults? Why can't we accept the fact that we can't control the future and just give it over to God? Why do we worry in a way that suggests that we have no parent? Why do we live as if God doesn't exist and He's not our parent? Kids don't worry like adults because they have parents. And adults forget they have parents too. Let me read to you a few scriptures. Isaiah 49 verse 15 to 16a. When I read this, it just shook me. This is so powerful. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child that she has born? Though she may forget, I will not forget you. This is God speaking. He says your mother can forget you, but I will never, ever forget you. Listen to this. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Ladies and gentlemen, the God of heaven says, I've engraved you on the palms of my hands. I don't know if it's my face that's on the palm of His hands, but it's there. When He opens His hands, He sees me. Wow. Think about your children. How do you feel about them? How do you feel about your children? Now take that feeling. God feels more than that for you. Psalm 56 verse 3, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. Isn't that what a child does? Is that what we do? When we're afraid, do we put our trust in Him? Psalm 43 verse 17, the righteous cry out and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. Do we believe that when we cry out, God hears us? Like when our children cry out, we can hear them? I've learned to recognize the squeal of my children a mile away. And we think that God doesn't hear us. This is what parents do, isn't it? When a child cries out, you are there, on like a scone. Psalm 94 verse 19 says, when anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. That's what God does. He can turn your anxiety into joy. I can see how my boys' tears turn to joy when I console them according to the love of God that God has given me. Jeremiah 17 verse 7 to 8. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. We need to trust God like our children trust us. Hebrews 13, 5 to 6 says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? God is present in our pain. He's there with the vaccines of life. He's there when we cry. He's a better parent than we are, and He's a better parent than our parents have been to us. Psalm 27 verse 10 is so powerful. Though my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. I want to play you a song. This is a secular song, but as I was preparing this lesson, the words, the lyrics just came through my mind the whole time. I didn't go study what they all mean, but the chorus is what I would really want us to hold on to, because it's true. It's true. Kids feel like kings when they are young. They feel like the world is a great place. The world is easy. And then at some point in their lives, we realize that life has challenges, and we go through our first real challenge and through our first real heartbreak. And that's not only the birth of reality in our lives, but that's the birth of worry in so many of our lives. And God, as our parent, wants us to remember that we shouldn't worry about anything, that He has a plan for us, regardless of what we go through. Here's the song.
There was a time I used to look into my father's eyes. In a happy home, I was a king, I had a golden throne. But those days are gone, now the memories on the wall. I still hear the sounds from places where I was born. Upon the hill across the blue lake, that's where I had my first heartbreak. I still remember how it all changed. My father said, don't you worry, child. See, heaven's got a plan for you. Don't you worry now. Yeah. A time I met a girl of a different kind. We ruled the world. I thought I'd never lose her out of sight. But we were so young, nothing good now and then. I still hear the songs reminding me of a friend. Across the blue lake, that's where I had my first heartbreak. I still remember how it all changed. My father said, don't you worry, child. See, heaven's got a plan for you. Don't child. See, heaven's got a plan for you. Don't you worry now. Yeah. Don't you worry, child. See, heaven's got a plan for you. Don't you worry now. Yeah. Don't you worry, child.
If there's just one sentence I would love us to remember forever, is this: don't you worry, child. Heaven's got a plan for you. Don't you worry, child. Heaven's got a plan for you. If you can just remember that in every trial you go through, in every moment that you get anxious, and every moment that you feel depressed, if you can just remember that, don't worry, child. Heaven's got a plan for you. When your business wants to fall apart, when you can't get along with your neighbor, when you've got a family member stuck in something, just remember. When you hear that you're sick, just remember, don't you worry, child. Heaven's got a plan for you. And imagine God is saying that to you. This is a loaded statement, but there's a few notes on it. Just 3 things. Number 1, it doesn't matter how old you are. To God, you are a child. It doesn't matter if you're 70 or 80 years or 90 years old. To God, you are still a child. And so the statement applies to you as well. Don't you worry, child. God has got a plan for you. And that's the second thing. Heaven has a plan for you. Heaven has a plan for each one of us, especially His children. And God has a plan for us before the world started, because He knew that we'd be in His Son. And lastly, so don't worry. Don't worry. I love you all. Have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.